Hi, welcome to How to RPG. My name is Fred Wheeler, and today I want to talk about role-playing games. I want to talk about monsters in your role-playing games, and it's the Hydra for today. One of my favourite monsters, going right back to Greek mythology, and the story of Hercules and the Hydra is definitely one that needs to be retold many times. So let's have a look at the different aspects of this. I'm going to be going over the general aspects of your Hydra, their biology, quite a lot of information on biology. I'm going to be looking at the society and habitat. I'll look at the ecology, how to incorporate it into your adventures, how it fights in a battle, how to defeat it, and its origins. So let's get started. The original Greek Hydra monster had a huge snake body with many heads. And the number of heads that the Hydra had was first depicted as being 6, and later would have up to 50 different heads. Now, the Hydra in Dungeons & Dragons is very different to the original Greek Hydra. It is an immense reptilian monster with multiple heads and 4 stumpy legs, making it look quite cumbersome. Now, the biology of a Hydra, hard to nail down, but it's very similar to a snake because, in fact, it is based off a snake. The skeleton of a Hydra consists of a skull, a hyoid, which is kind of like a connection between the skull and the spine. It, of course, has a spine and a few ribs, and that's it. It has no other bones whatsoever. It has got a highly mobile jaw. Okay, the jaw bone itself of the Hydra allows it to extend itself like a snake, and it can now swallow or eat large prey or creatures. The internal organs of the Hydra are elongated or stretched out, and they're staggered inside the body because there isn't a lot of space in the center of its mass, so you've got to spread it out. The Hydra's blood is a concentrated alkaline poison so lethal that even its scent is deadly, which it can actually exhale as a poisonous gas. The skin of the Hydra is made up of granular scales that are an extension of the epidermis, or which is the skin of your Hydra. Molting for a Hydra has only one purpose, unlike a snake, and that is to renew the skin and scales. Normally with a snake molting, it would be for mating purposes. It would be to get rid of infection and fleas and ticks that are in its skin. This is not something the Hydra suffers from, okay? It only has one purpose. The fangs of the Hydra inject a deadly venom containing every type of toxin known to man and is intended to kill its victim quickly. The belly or underside of the Hydra is sensitive to vibration, and this lets the Hydra detect approaching animals or creatures that are moving across the ground. A Hydra tracks its prey and changes in the environment by using its smell, and it does this by collecting airborne particles with its multi-directional forked tongue, just like a snake. Unlike the snake, and although snakes do have this, Hydra vision is a combination of binocular vision, night vision, and ultraviolet sensitivity that can be switched on and off depending on the light or the shift of light in the day. So whether it's dark or whether it's the daytime. The Hydra has infrared sensitive receptors in the grooves of its snout for sensing heat radiating off a warm-blooded creature. So it doesn't need to necessarily see you, it can sense you through your heat or your body heat. The ears of the Hydra are an internal organ with a small hole on the outside of the head, either side, to receive sound waves. So it can hear you as well. Each time a Hydra's head is severed, a natural reflex actually seals the neck arteries shut to prevent any kind of blood loss. It also allows it to engage in the regrowth process. Now, combat with your Hydra, well, here's some of the things you want to consider, because fighting a Hydra is a really bad idea. I wouldn't actually advise doing it, but if you do, surprising the Hydra is nearly impossible because at least one head remains awake, so it can detect you coming. A Hydra breathes a poisonous cloud before biting its victims with its fangs and injecting a fatal venom. So poison is one of the big factors with your Hydra. The Hydra makes multiple attacks according to the number of heads that it has, and it can coordinate those attacks. It can make them separately, but yes, they can be all coordinated all at once if it really wanted to. Normal attacks against the Hydra's heads or body, but particularly the body, have no effect on the monster. It is invulnerable to injury or damage. Hydra never back down from a fight. They don't really have a natural predator, as I will discuss. Now, the Hydra will also regenerate two heads for each one that is severed. Now, I know that there is some discussion about the fact that the Hydra, when it loses a head, only regrows one head, but I can assure you it's two heads. That's what makes the Hydra so dangerous. Now, the habitat and society of your Hydra. The Hydra is a solitary creature who prefers the swamp, lakes, and rivers. Why is this? Because it can swim very, very well. It's an aquatic creature. There is no society for a Hydra because there is only one Hydra in Greek mythology. The Hydra never truly reproduce in Greek mythology because it is one of a kind. It is a unique creature. It never actually reproduced with any other creature, probably because it would have attacked it anyway. Even if there was another monster as powerful as the Hydra, getting together would probably be a bit difficult. Hydra as a species, though, will gather to mate according to Dungeons & Dragons lore. So if you're looking at Dungeons & Dragons lore, yes, they are apparently a species. There aren't supposed to be that many of them, and they do gather to mate and only gather to mate. Now, the eggs of a Hydra tend to be eaten by its parents, unfortunately, if you're going into the Dungeons & Dragons lore. So the chances are there won't be that many Hydra around. One, because if they do come across each other in your D&D world, you'll find that they will attack each other and one of them will probably wind up getting killed. If you're dealing with the fact that they are trying to bring up offspring, they will wind up eating the eggs. So it's going to reduce the population quite a lot. Now, the ecology of the Hydra will eat every living creature in its territory and outside of its territory when it runs out of food in its territory. It will then move, once it's eaten everything in the region, to a new region and continue to consume everything. A Hydra is impossible to train because of its wild, ferocious nature. It is way too independent. You really can't control this thing. The Hydra has no known predators that hunt it with regard to Greek mythology. But if you're dealing with a world where there are dragons, it's possible that a grown dragon, maybe an adult dragon, or more likely an ancient dragon, might prey on the Hydra when you include it in your Dungeons & Dragons lore. Now, how do you actually incorporate the Hydra into your adventure? There's lots of different ways. I'm going to give you just a few. Many of these ideas come from the Game Master Roundtable or Dungeon Master Roundtable. I want to thank those members for sharing their ideas. That is Steely Sam. It is Denny Dicely and Wally DM. Okay. You could have a Hydra who is guarding a labyrinth from intruders, and the only way to get through this location is to correctly answer a few riddles to destroy the creature. So you don't actually fight the Hydra itself. Instead, you have to answer a few key riddles to actually destroy the monster. Or to make the monster more difficult to fight. By answering those riddles correctly, you wind up making the monster more difficult. Or potentially making it easier. Whichever way you want to go. Another way, and I'm taking this from Wally DM because he built this puzzle specifically to see if I could actually figure out a puzzle. So I'm going to mention it, and he's got a video on the topic, by the way. And that is, you could have a wooden Hydra statue that blocks a jungle path, and there is a puzzle that you have to answer and solve to continue down that trail. And of course, the key will be around chopping off heads in some way. Now, the curse of the Hydra might cause someone who's killed the Hydra or monster. So if you actually successfully kill the Hydra, you wind up becoming cursed to regrow extra heads and limbs if you ever wind up with your head decapitated or a limb amputated. I know that sounds quite bizarre and strange. You could potentially wind up with a player character who kind of looks like a bit like a mutant, Or you might even want to have them slowly but surely, as they suffer more and more injuries and lose more and more limbs, becoming a Hydra themselves. You could have a Hydra chained up in front of a wizard's secret cave as a guard. I'm taking this directly from Sinbad, one of the old movies. And I'm going to also suggest, and this is, I know, kind of a bit silly, but you could have a captured Hydra who is used in a theme park ride for peasants or children. I know that sounds odd, but maybe you can get away with it. If you have if you forget most of the lore, you could probably get that done. Either way, maybe it's only a theme park ride that is active for one day before it wind up. They have to take it offline, or it runs away with the children or the peasants. Anyway, you could also have a rampaging Hydra be its own adventure or campaign, where the player characters have to find some way of defeating this creature before it winds up laying waste to a whole region. This brings us to the fighting aspect of dealing with a Hydra. You're probably not going to be negotiating with a Hydra, it's just simply too wild and ferocious. So how do you defeat the Hydra? All the heads of the Hydra must be severed before the Hydra dies. And new heads will regrow in seconds if flame has not been applied to a severed Hydra neck. You might even be able to use something like acid to cauterize the wound where the neck has been decapitated or head has been decapitated. But flame or acid is probably the best way. One of the Hydra's heads is in fact immortal and indestructible. It never ages, okay, and it can never be harmed. There is only one way to destroy the immortal head of a Hydra, since the Hydra has one head that can't be hurt, and that is to use a magic weapon. And it must be a very specific magic weapon. It has to be a special golden magical sword created by the gods to injure or decapitate the immortal Hydra head. This is the only head that operates this way, though. Now, the origins of the Hydra are kind of interesting, and you've probably already looked that stuff up before, but let's go over it quickly. And that is that the Lernaean Hydra, or Hydra of Lerna, is from Greek mythology. It is also called just the Hydra, and it lives in a lair below Lerna Lake, and it is a serpentine sea monster. It's not really a dragon with multiple heads. The Hydra guards one of the entrances to the underworld, or Tartarus, in Greek mythology, and the Hydra is the offspring of Typhon and Echidna. The Greek hero Hercules killed the Hydra, and I think it's probably a wise idea, if you're including the Hydra in your game, that there not be a species of Hydra, but there be only one Hydra, and that the goal is, set it up as being a main problem. So there's only going to be one Hydra you ever come across. It is the main focus of your adventure, dealing with this thing. I think that's a better approach than having a species of them. In any case, I hope that this was interesting and useful to you, and if it was, great. I want to thank my patrons who support me so I can keep doing this every week. I want to thank you for watching the video, and hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s.